and welcome to the Friday, August 27th edition of On Iowa Politics. This week, Troopergate, a contest in Iowa's 2nd District, and Mask Madness. Hi, I'm James Lynch of the Cedar Rapids Gazette. With me today are Tom Barton of the Quad City Times. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, James.
Erin Murphy, Lee newspaper Statehouse bureau chief. Good morning, Erin.
Good morning, James.
And Gazette opinion editor Todd Dorman. Good morning, Todd.
Good morning.
You can find us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and subscribe to On Iowa Politics wherever you find your podcast. First up today, Troopergate. In previous podcasts, we've talked about Governor Kim Reynolds' decision to send Iowa State troopers to the Texas border to help President Joe Biden handle the flood of immigrants coming across the border. Until this week, we didn't know much about the deployment, such as the cost and how many troopers were involved. The Gazette's Erin Jordan looked at the records, including about 3,500 pages of emails, and found that the state public safety leaders had some of the same concerns that the public had about the governor's commitment, that it would not leave enough staff for law enforcement obligations and would run up a significant cost sending personnel out of state. The actual cost of deploying 28 troopers to Texas for 2 weeks ended up being nearly $295,000, which Iowans, not Texans, will pay. And while that's small potatoes in the grand scheme of state spending, it's still $295,000 from a state agency that lawmakers have been saying has been underfunded for years. The governor defended her actions, saying that her first responsibility is the health and safety of Iowans, and the humanitarian crisis at the nation's southern border is affecting all 50 states. Apparently, she didn't feel the health and safety of Iowans was at stake when Minnesota authorities asked for help under the same mutual aid agreement as Texas cited to deal with civil unrest in the wake of the George Floyd murder last year. Todd, it seems reasonable people can disagree with the governor that, quote, Iowa has no choice but to act because of the rise in drugs, human trafficking, and violent crimes has become unsustainable. But it seems like there's another issue here. As Senator Joe Bolcom said, this was just the latest example of Reynolds keeping Iowans in the dark. And he said that the governor, who we expect will announce she's running for re-election sometime next month, is using these state resources and the Iowa State Patrol in an ongoing effort to build her far-right political resume. Fair criticism?
Oh, I think so. I think, Erin Jordan's story, one of the interesting aspects of it was that it sort of hinted that the Reynolds administration was waiting, with bated breath for an opportunity to send forces to the border. And some, are there any states that are asking for this yet? And so it seems like she was kind of itching to do this. And of course, the political aspect of it is obvious. I mean, this is a main Republican talking point that there's a crisis at the border and it's Joe Biden's fault, and so that's pretty boilerplate right now. I mean, the other side of this is that there's the part that basically when people asked how much this was going to cost, they then wouldn't tell people how much it was going to cost. I mean, they were very sort of secretive ahead of it, and what this was going to entail, what they were going to be doing, who was going to pay for it. All of these kind of basic questions couldn't be answered, and I think that just goes back to right now we've got kind of a lack of accountability in the for the governor, and the state legislature controlled by Republicans hasn't been willing to look at how she misspent COVID relief funds, how they're not fulfilling, they're violating the open records law by not fulfilling requests in a timely manner or completely ignoring them. I mean, there's just a long list of things that this administration is doing that are questionable, potentially illegal. And, the legislature is just sort of content to sit by and watch that happen. There's no oversight. There's not going to be any oversight from the agencies that her appointees control. So basically the governor can, do as she pleases. And that's basically what she's been doing. And not telling the media about things apparently pleases her a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, Erin. On that note, you're the president of the Iowa Capitol Press Association, which has concerns similar to Senator Bolcom. That the governor is choosing to keep Iowans in the dark about many of the things her administration is doing, and I'm thinking about questions Iowans have had about COVID-19 information, her office not disclosing the data not disclosing it in a way that was easy to follow and to use. Her office doesn't even disclose her public schedule, sometimes maybe an hour before an event where the governor is going to participate. Um, and as Todd said, not honoring public records requests, not responding to reporters' questions, not granting interviews except with friendly radio talk show hosts. Do you see a pattern here, and why should Iowans care?
There has definitely been a an unsettling, might be the right word, trend, pattern um, that this administration has become increasingly less transparent. It's become more and more difficult to, and you highlighted some of them. The public schedule has been a problem. The fulfillment of freedom of information requests has been a huge problem. And for those who aren't familiar, that's when, reporters or the public too. I mean, that freedom of information isn't just a journalist tool. It's for the public, anyone who wants to request documents from state government are supposed to be able to do that and receive that information in a timely manner. And that has been extremely problematic with this administration. So it's troubling. And why should the public care? That's if you don't have a transparent government, you're you're going to get the government that you deserve. Frankly, I don't know how better to say it to people. I know a lot of times when these things come up, it's tough from our seat and our spot in that discussion because there's just a lot of people out there who will just roll their eyes and say, oh, you guys are just trying to cause trouble or stir up drama or this or that or just the liberal media who cares what you want or think you deserve to have anyways. And I mean, it's tough to get through that. And the bottom line is, if you've got a government that does all its work in secret, um, that government is going to learn that it can do more and more things in secret. And odds are they're going to start doing things that you really don't want them to do. That's why these public records laws are in place, and um, we need a government, regardless of political affiliation, that's responsive to those kinds of things. And to be frank, we're having trouble with that right now.
Yeah, there's been a real change, actually. Just I would say in the last couple of years in this administration, and I think one of the things that has frustrated people like us, reporters and people in the media, is that the governor's office historically has been pretty open. The century of Branstad in the governor's office. I mean, you just had to hint that you had a microphone, and he would start talking to you. Tom Vilsack carried on that tradition of weekly press conferences pretty much consistently through his administration. Chet Culver, not quite as much, but when Branstad came back into office, he had his weekly news conferences, and it was a way, to ask those questions that Iowans wanted answers to, and we've seen a real change. Weekly news conferences are a little bit spotty under Governor Reynolds, even though she promised to have a weekly news conference back when she was running in, when was that, 2018 when she ran?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
She promised to have weekly news conferences. Her weekly news conferences sometimes are more of a dog and pony show than a question and answer format, which is also very frustrating. So, it just seems like there's a pattern here of holding the public at arm's length and just saying we'll do what's best for you. Don't ask any questions, and that's never a good approach, I guess, at least from our perspective. Um, Moving along here, let's talk about the second district race. Tom Barton had the story this week. The first-term state representative Christina Bohannon is running for the second district House seat held by Representative Marionette Miller Meeks. Tom, this is a district that Donald Trump carried twice by 4 points in 2020 and 4.1 percentage points in 2016. Miller Meeks carried the district that includes Scott and Johnson counties, as well as 22 mostly rural counties, by just 6 votes, not 6 points, but 6 votes. What's Bohannon's pitch, and can she find 7 votes to get a victory?
So Bohannon's making the pitch that she knows firsthand the struggles that many Iowa families have faced during the pandemic, recounting her family's own struggles growing up in a rural small town trailer park. Her parents didn't graduate high school. Her father struggled to provide for the family as a construction worker. And as a teenager, when she was in high school, her father fell ill from emphysema and had his health insurance canceled, forcing the family, she said, to choose between paying for his medicine and paying the family's bills. But thanks to the support and guidance of teachers, student loans, scholarships, she got a fair shot. She was the first in her family to go to college. She paid for her degree in environmental engineering and then law school, she said, by picking oranges, cleaning trailers, and working as an engineer. And if elected to Congress, says that she will fight to ensure that hardworking Iowa families and small businesses receive a fair shot to get ahead. She argues too many Iowa families are struggling, worrying that they're just one bad break from not making ends meet, like her family. Again, if elected, says that she would work for more technical and vocational training for high skill, high wage jobs, greater investment in children in schools, steps to make Iowa a clean energy leader, strong protections for voting rights, and better access to quality, affordable healthcare and broadband. As for whether she can find 7 votes, we'll see. It's doable. It's not an insurmountable hurdle, but it will hinge on her ability to reach out to and sway white working class voters in the district who twice voted for Obama, only to swing and twice support Donald Trump. She'll have a difficult task of trying to keep her base and appease Johnson County Democrats, while again also, appealing to those white working class voters from these industrial river towns in southeastern Iowa, with a once robust Democratic Union base, who have shown their willingness to, again, swing one way or the other depending on the candidate. If she can demonstrate that she would be a independent-minded politician, in the vein of Jim Leach or Dave Loebsack, who previously held this seat, someone who's willing to break with their party and Nancy Pelosi on certain issues and, put the district above partisan politics, while at the same time, tying Miller Meeks to Republican obstructionism that's blocking a Biden administration economic agenda that would benefit working class Iowans, then yeah, I think she can be successful. I think she can find those votes. But if the pandemic or the situation in Afghanistan continue to worsen, I think Democrats may well lose the confidence of the moderate swing voters that lifted the party to victory in 2020.
Yeah, it seems like it might be a challenge for her since, she ran for the legislature. She won the Democratic primary, basically running as the progressive candidate, the candidate, the Democrat who was more woke, and defeated a long time Democratic representative in that Iowa City district. And now she has to somehow pivot to those voters you talked about who voted for Donald Trump. Todd, as Tom mentioned, this district include places like Clinton, Fort Madison, Burlington, and Ottumwa, where voters used to be reliable Democrats. How can Bohannon bring them back into the fold?
I have no idea. just to be quite honest. I mean, Tom's right. There's something to be said for appealing to those on those economic issues and trying to, be a sort of independent, a little more moderate. I mean, I think that's what Rita Hart did, and only lost by 6 votes. And I think there was a lot of sort of in the post-mortem on that they're, they looked at like the University of Iowa and places and how many people undervoted in that election and didn't bother voting for the congressional seat. I have a feeling it was a lot more than 6. So, I mean, so if Christina Bohannon runs that kind of campaign and then does a better job on university outreach and getting, you know, campaigning on campus and some of those things, I mean, maybe that's enough to swing the district back. But Tom's also right about the Democratic brand being sort of banged up at this point with the Afghanistan problem, and then of course the border is still an issue, and Republicans are making a lot of hay out of that. So, uh, and the progressives will tell you that the way to win is to have bold ideas and not become, not run as Republican light, and you know stake out some differences and show rural Iowans that sort of corporate agriculture and a lot of these other factors that are shaping their lives are not necessarily the Republicans back are not necessarily good things. I mean, what have Republicans done for you lately? I mean, these small towns are shrinking. Uh, their kids are leaving the state. I mean, it's so I think she's going to have to strike that balance. But I mean, it's a district that the Democrats clearly can win if if Biden rights the ship and maybe things look a little better next year. But yeah, it's going to be tough. And if Democrats knew what that formula was, they probably would have used it by now, and they haven't had much luck.
Yeah. So I think we've clearly established that the second district is in play, Erin. And with Democrats fielding a strong challenger in the first district and Bohannon in the second district, can Democrats turn Eastern Iowa blue again?
Can they? Absolutely. 100% they can. Will they? I don't know. But yeah, both of these races are going to be competitive. And as you noted now, Liz Mathis is a very strong candidate in that first district. And look, I mean, these seats have been Republican for all of, what time is it? 8 months. So um, it's not like you have to go back into ancient history to find Democratic representation in either of these areas. So absolutely. And the other, I think one of the interesting things that, well, I know I'm watching for, and problem is I don't know that we'll have an answer until the day after Election Day, a little more than a year from now, is what the electorate looks like, and specifically those Trump voters, and whether they come out in a midterm election when Trump's not on the ballot. I'm sure Republicans will do their best to find those voters and find a way to motivate them to turn out, because that group clearly helped Republicans down the ticket in Iowa last year, including Ashley Hinson in the first district and Marionette Miller Meeks in the second. So that's the Republicans' challenge is to find those voters who came out to vote for Donald Trump in 2020 and make sure that they're also coming out and voting again in 2022 when Trump's not on the ballot. That will have a huge and that will have a big impact in the third district race here in Central Iowa too. So um, the, that's just one of the factors that will play into these districts that are so competitive, and just little shifts in the wind can make a huge difference in competitive districts like these. So yeah, I expect 3 competitive races at this point anyways. I mean, who knows what happens between now and then, but Democrats got to feel good assuming Cindy Axne is running for re-election. I think they like Christina Bohannon as a candidate, so I feel like Democrats probably feel good about their lineups, and the fourth districts is now a pipe dream, but I feel like they got to feel good about their chances to go back to having three of the 4 in Congress again.
Of course, part of the answer to your question, Erin, will be in another I don't know, year, 14 months, whatever. Will anybody care about Afghanistan, or will anybody care about whether you have to wear a mask or not?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we always have to have that caveat at this point. We have no idea what the big issue is going to be this November, much less next November.
Yeah. But the issue right now in the People's Republic of Johnson County is masks. Iowa City Mayor Bruce Teague has defied Governor Kim Reynolds by issuing a mask mandate requiring requiring masks in classrooms and other gathering spots, including stores, restaurants, and churches in Iowa City. Teague said that he took those extraordinary measures to ensure that we all get out of this COVID panic together. The response from the governor's office was it's against the law and it's not enforceable. And it's sort of echoing the governor's mantra that Iowans know how to protect themselves and their families. But not everybody thinks that Teague is out of bounds with his mandate. The argument is that the law Iowa legislators approved and signed by Reynolds bars cities from taking any action that requires owners of real property to implement a mask mandate. And their analysis is that Teague doesn't require property owners to take any action, but he puts the onus or the responsibility on individuals to wear masks in public venues. Todd, this mask order expires at the end of September. Will he be in court before then? Will this be a sequel to the local minimum wage enacted in Johnson County and other areas under home rule in the recent past?
I don't think he'll be in court. I mean, when the Iowa City Community School District and the University of Iowa both said that they weren't going to abide by the mandate, I think that sort of took the teeth out of it and left pretty wide expanses of Iowa City that aren't going to excuse me, that aren't going to do that, aren't going to mask. But yeah, you could see the legislature come in next year and pass a tighter ban on masking and maybe throw in you know grocery sacks or whatever they can think of that Iowa City might someday ban. They'll have to put their heads together and try to think like socialists, I guess, and then put that together. But yeah, I don't think he's not going to get taken to court. I don't think it would be worth it. And I don't see the governor doing it because, I mean, she basically allowed the cities to do mandates all through last year when she said that the attorney general thought that those were illegal and nobody challenged him in court. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't seem likely that Attorney General Tom Miller is going to challenge this. Like you said, he apparently said he didn't think it was legal last year, and supposedly he's reviewing what Iowa City has done. But I'm guessing that might take more than 30 days. So yeah.
yeah.
Tom, is there any push for mask mandates in the Quad Cities area? I mean, are people talking to the city council and about doing this sort of thing?
No. Uh, yeah. So yeah, nobody's pushed the city council to do a mask mandate, and there's been no conversations about it, and I don't see um, any willingness or interest to want to do that, just given how politicized the issue of masks have become. The city didn't do a mask mandate last year, so I don't see them doing one again this year, and you know, um, riling people up and potentially drawing the ire of Davenport residents when it's an election year, because remember we got city elections this fall, right? So yeah, that's a hot button issue that they don't want to wade into. And the other thing is, they don't want to potentially draw the ire of the governor's office at a time when they're asking for state assistance and resources to address issues related to crime.
Mm-hmm. Well, going back to Iowa City for just a second, I saw something on social media last night, somebody pointing out that the Iowa City police apparently were not wearing masks. So apparently the mask mandate doesn't have teeth. Erin, a Council Bluffs mother is suing the governor and the directors of the Departments of Education and Human Services over the lack of masks in schools. Do you think this is going to go to court and that we're going to get a decision from the court on whether or not the governor acted legally, constitutionally, and signing a law that says no mask mandates?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I am certainly not a lawyer, and not a whole lot closer to even being a legal expert or analyst. So I can't say how much legal legitimacy this lawsuit, how much what kind of chances it has. But it's interesting. It could wind up, being one of those things, and the judge could issue a temporary injunction to stop the law while the lawsuit is considered. So we could wind up with a scenario like we've had with these abortion bills that have passed, where it gets blocked temporarily, and then we wait on the courts to decide. I don't know. I mean, I would think, to me, it seems like the best legal argument they would have is the usurping of local control, taking away the ability of local districts to make those decisions for themselves. But that didn't seem to be, again, based on my extremely rudimentary reading of the suit, didn't seem to be the argument that they were making. It was more about students having the right to go to school in a safe place, and then by having this law in place, it's making schools unsafe. So that was kind of their legal argument they took. So I have no idea how much that's going to hold water with the judge, but it'll certainly be interesting. And man, if it does end up in the courts, we could be headed for a couple of weeks or months or what it is of chaos, of schools starting the year not being able to have a mask ban, and then maybe it gets a temporary injunction. So for now, you can have one if you want, or a mask requirement, sorry. And then the law gets a temporary injunction. Now you can put a requirement in place if you want, but the whole thing could get turned back around again later. It could end up being a crazy mess here, depending on which way it goes.
I feel like we need to have a disclaimer here that none of the members of the On Iowa Politics podcast team are attorneys, and we are not offering legal advice, and that if you do need legal advice, seek your own counsel.
Absolutely.
It also strikes me that the other lawsuit that was filed against the governor this week, actually, I guess the same day as the lawsuit over mask, was the one regarding unemployment benefits, that the governor acted illegally in cutting off the federal supplemental unemployment benefits. And there's some language about the state workforce development director and the governor doing everything. I'm paraphrasing here, but basically doing everything they can to, help or assist unemployed people. And the idea that turning down that federal aid did not fulfill that requirement. Obviously, the mask situation, I think, is getting a lot more attention. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, you think about the number of Iowans who would have been eligible for that assistance, and the money involved there could have a big impact on those folks. And finally, is it the final? Senator Chuck Grassley this week announced he will complete his 41st annual 99-county tour September 1st when he stops in Adair County. Yes or no, Tom? Is this the final full Grassley?
No.
Erin, Todd, the final? Erin?
I'll say no. He's running literally and politically.
All right. Todd, final word.
I'll say no, unless, at some point soon the state comes to its senses and decides to not have 99 counties anymore. That could be the full Grassley. Could be like, 30 counties or something like that. It would make a lot more sense. It'd be a lot easier on people.
That's right. All right.
Maybe finally they'll decide that Lee County doesn't need a north and a south. It doesn't need two.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe they'll cut Kossuth and make 100, and it'll be the full Grassley will be 100 counties.
There you go. State Auditor Rob Sand is doing his version of the full Grassley. He's going to 100 courthouses. So he's sort of one-upping Grassley.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the 100 courthouse tour. So take that, Chuck Grassley. Well, that's it for this edition of On Iowa Politics. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Tell a friend and tell them to subscribe wherever you find your podcast. Send fan mail to podcasts@thegazette.com. You can find us on the homepages of the Quad City Times, Sioux City Journal, Muscatine Journal, Mason City Globe Gazette, Waterloo-Cedar Falls Courier, and the Cedar Rapids Gazette. Jeremy Jacobs will take us out. If you know an Iowa band or musician who should be on our show, send us a sound file and subscribe to On Iowa Politics. For Erin, Tom, Todd, and our producer, Stephen, I'm James Lynch. Thanks for listening. Stay well.